Imagine standing at the edge of a storm. Around you, chaos roars, voices demanding, expectations pressing, emotions swirling. But instead of stepping into the storm, you step back. You say nothing. You do nothing. And in that silence, the world shifts. The storm bends toward you, hungry for a reaction, but you remain still. This is the paradox of unavailability. By refusing to engage, you claim authority over your life. Today, we'll unravel Carl Jung's radical wisdom on why withdrawing might be the most revolutionary act of self-love, and how it can transform your relationships, your psyche, and your destiny. Ever noticed how certain people command a room without even opening their mouth? They don't plead, they don't argue, they simply are aware of their own power and value. They feel the silent force. Now picture yourself doing that. What would happen if you stopped reacting on cue? If you chose silence over knee-jerk replies, space over confrontation? What would shift in your world? Here's the truth. When you're no longer constantly accessible, emotionally, physically, mentally, the dynamics around you begin to unravel. Because people have grown used to manipulating you through your reactions, your habits, and your predictability. But the moment you step back, the whole game resets. Suddenly, they realize they never knew you at all. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." So think about it. Who becomes restless when you go quiet? Who pushes your buttons just to get an emotional spark from you? That says more about them than it does about you. It also shows how much you're still giving yourself away without even realizing it. You keep sacrificing your peace to keep others happy, to avoid conflict, to not be abandoned. But every forced yes, every rushed reply, every emotional outburst, it all chips away at your energy. And what's left at the end of the day? Exhaustion, frustration, a hollow feeling you can't explain. Here's why. You're too accessible to people who don't even deserve your quiet. This isn't about turning your back on everyone. It's about turning toward yourself. Jung called this journey individuation, becoming your full, authentic self. And it begins when you realize silence can be more powerful than any argument. And pulling back, when it's intentional, not fearful, is pure strength. So let me ask you, how long will you let others control your emotional state? How long will you dance like a puppet every time someone touches your wounds? Maybe it's time to cut those strings, to become a little less predictable, to become a mystery. Because once you stop being always available, everything changes. You were taught to always be reachable, to respond fast, to be agreeable, to say yes when your soul whispered no. Since childhood, you've been conditioned to believe that being always on call is a sign of love. But no one told you? That kind of availability is not love. It's a trap. And as long as you equate worth with constant presence, you'll be used, drained, and tossed aside the moment you're no longer useful. Here's what people won't tell you. If you're too available, you become too familiar. And what's familiar often gets taken for granted. People start treating you like a reset button for their emotions. They push when they need comfort, praise, distraction. And then they shelve you again. You don't notice because you've been tricked into thinking that being there for everyone means someone will eventually be there for you. Carl Jung spoke of the persona, the mask we wear to fit in. And that mask, it's what keeps you stuck in the role of the always available one. You pretend you're okay when you're drowning. You reply when you're exhausted. You explain yourself endlessly, as if you owe people a version of you they approve of. But the more you center yourself around others, the more you vanish from your own life. This constant availability is quiet self-abandonment. It's a subtle cry for approval, a need to shape how others see you. But the cost? That is one of the most valuable possessions you have, your peace, your energy, given away as if it's limitless. It's not. And those who demand your presence non-stop, they don't want you, they want the comfort you provide. When you change that, when you set boundaries, the same people will call you cold, not because you're wrong, but because you're no longer serving their emotional convenience. Here's the brutal truth. The more accessible you are, the less you're valued. Because what's always around becomes disposable. People don't cherish what they never had to work for. So ask yourself, who actually deserves your time, your energy, your presence? And more importantly, who deserves your absence? But before answering, there's something deeper you need to face. Why do you react so easily? Why do you rush to explain, to fix, to please? The answer lies in Jung's idea of psychic energy. Every emotion, every thought, every action, it draws from your inner battery. And the question is, are you deciding where that energy goes? Or is the world deciding for you? Every time you reply to a pointless provocation, every time you defend yourself against petty criticism, every time you give energy to someone who doesn't value you, you're bleeding your soul dry. Jung warned, what you resist persists. The more you react, the deeper you sink. People who are constantly drained aren't weak. They're just giving their energy to the wrong things. And here's what happens when you're always depleted. You become easy prey. Manipulators can smell that exhaustion. They know exactly how to trigger you. They don't have to shout. They just poke your exposed nerves. And you respond. Every time. But real power, it's not in the reaction. It's in choosing when and if you act at all. That starts with knowing yourself well enough to pause, to breathe, to observe. How many sleepless nights have you had over something someone said? How many hours wasted on overthinking conversations? That's your life force, being spent with no return. Your psychic energy is sacred. Guard it well, and it creates presence. And this is where your work begins, not to become numb, but to become sovereign. And here's one of Jung's biggest truths. Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes. But that is your doorway to freedom.